Okay. So good morning once again, all of you. Last class, what we were discussing was the philosophy. What was the? I'll just rush through once again. We are dealing with the design of tall structures because Sharath Kumar is again new today. We discussed structure, why we need a tall structure, what is the necessity of providing or building or constructing tall structures or high-rise structures. Then we have discussed the structural system for the construction of a high-rise. What are all the points, factors to be considered when you select a particular system of materials? What is the criteria for the selection? Then we have this design process. For before you go for the analysis, the complete. Actually, what we have to make first, we have to make a functional layout. Then we have to do a gravity load analysis. Gravity load analysis is not the analysis that we are doing with the. From that, we will decide what is the initial size of the beams and slabs. Then we will go for a rigorous final analysis. There we incorporate all the needs and changes. Then again, you may have to go for a dynamic analysis, that is considering all the lateral forces, that is the wind and earthquake loading. So analysis, because the dynamic analysis is nothing but we have to, because wind load and earthquake load will time to time it will change. Second to second, the frequency or the magnitude of or the response will be different at each and every. All other loadings analysis, we consider that it is a static load. We know that dead load is live load. Also, we assume it is a static and do the analysis, but wind load and earthquake load we cannot consider it as a static load, because the frequency, the loading is unpredictable. So you know that earthquake, when we discuss the wind and earthquake in detail, I'll explain you why. So that is means dynamic analysis is nothing but considering all the effect of these lateral forces, and moreover these lateral forces are, it is time dependent. So we'll do finally a dynamic analysis. Dynamic analysis mainly we do for very important structures like power stations, towers, fire stations, or whichever is important. I mean, the structure can, at any cost, it cannot have a damage. So if there is any damage, it will lead to a big hazardous that has to be avoided. So for that we have to do a dynamic analysis also. Then we can do for a check for deflection due to the long-term deflections like creep and shrinkage. So steps that we do for any analysis. Then what are all the design considerations that we have to take? Because there are three terms. One is feasibility and economy. So safety has to be considered because no collapse is allowed. Serviceability, excessive deflection or cracking your wire at any point of time. So that, yes.
Ma'am, your voice is breaking.
My voice is breaking.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. For all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Let me wait, because sometimes I told today it is showing bad network. So in between there's a problem. Now it's okay. Just for a minute, let me put my headphone. hear me? Now is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So what we were discussing in the last class slide alone, I was discussing. So safety, serviceability, and both safety economy. Okay. So this is what I think in the last class we have discussed. Safety means it is a strength aspect. Serviceability means it is aspect, and finally both safety and serviceability satisfying these two criteria, economy also has to be taken into consideration. This is where we have stopped last class. So now today let us see the design philosophies. When you do a design, I was explaining you yesterday, first we need to do an analysis. So once we finish the analysis, from the analysis whatever we are getting, the output will be the input for the design. It means the bending moment or shear force, whatever the load that is coming out from the analysis will be the input for the design. The design output will be the reinforcement, the dimensions, and deflection, etc. Okay, you will be checking for the deflection. Final dimensions and reinforcement will be decided based on the design. So the first design philosophy was the working stress. It is the working stress method. Initially it was working stress method. Then we moved on to ultimate load method. Then came in between, that is called reliability. And finally, now we are in the limit state method. Okay. So quickly, I will go through this. So that how this development from working stress to ultimate load to reliability to the final limit state method that we are using now is it has come. Can anybody tell me what is a working stress method? Now, are we using working stress method anywhere?
In bridges and dams, ma'am.
Massive structures. In India, especially now in foundations and all, but still now it is changed. Okay. So the working stress method, I'll tell you what is the issues or what is the disadvantages of adopting a working stress method. So I'll just go on. Working stress method is actually a traditional method. It's a very traditional method. It was early in initial period of 19th century, we were using the working stress method. There was an assumption. So this is one of the major assumptions that we use in working stress method. Okay. We assume that the material behaves linearly elastic. Do you know what is the stress strain curve of a mild steel rod? If I draw a stress strain curve initial. Okay. So this is the strain and this is the stress. Okay. So the linear, we assume that means stress is directly proportional to, you know that when we use a concrete structure, if it's a steel structure, it is okay. If it is a steel, a non-linear behavior also will be there. But if you take concrete or any other composite material, we cannot expect all this material will behave in this particular region, because here in this region stress is proportional to strain variation. Okay, so that is assumption throughout the material will behave in a elastic manner. Assumption working stress method is adopted. Okay, so that means the specified permissible stresses are well below the material will have a strength. The permissible stresses are all below the material strength. We won't allow, or we won't even think that the material can have a strength more than that. Okay, so that is the assumption we have come across. So in working stress method, we give a factor of safety. Whatever be the material, whatever is the load, there is nothing, no differentiation. Directly a factor of safety we used to give. Okay, so the material strength by the permissible strength will give the factor of safety. A higher factor of safety provided, whatever be the load or whatever be the material, a particular factor of safety is given there. So with that, we go for the, but you know that there are number of limited working stress method. It has many disadvantages. First thing, the basic assumption could not be satisfied always. What is the basic? The basic assumption was the material behaves in a linear elastic manner. So that cannot be satisfied always, because concrete is a composite material, and concrete alone, plain concrete material. So the composite concrete is not an elastic material. Okay, so the assumption itself is wrong over there. Then in the long-term deflection effects like a creep, shrinkage, stress concentration, all these things are not, all these issues are not addressed in working stress. It fails to discriminate between different types of loads. Okay, different types of, whether it is dead load or live load or whatever it is, we give a particular factor of safety. It is not differentiated between different types of loads. Because of all these things, if we use a working stress method, finally we will end up with a large cross section. Make maybe 200 by 300, but when we adopt all these things without considering all these effects, by providing a large factor of safety, you will be designing it for a particular. Because of that, finally we will end up with a large cross section, which is not required actually, which may not be required for the structural element. Okay, so that will leads to the. Okay, so this is the major advantages. Advantage is that it is very simple, but there are many disadvantages are there. So we have stress method now. Then from the working stress method, we moved on to ultimate load method. It is also known as the load factor method. Load factor method, that means for each load, okay, we used to give a load factor, whether it is given, if it is a live load. Okay, so for to differentiate the loads, a load factor is mentioned there. And moreover, the stress condition at the state of collapse is a. Draw the stress strain curve once again. This is a linear state. So this is the final ultimate load, and this is the collapse state. Okay, so this is the collapse, and this is the yield. In working stress method, we used to stop with here. Working stress method, we maximum go the strength up to the yield alone. But load factor method or the ultimate load method, we have reached up to this level or the collapse level. Okay, we consider the condition. Okay, so we moved on to the non-linear part of the material also. Then as non-linear stress strain curves are assumed. On the yield, this part of the material behavior is also considered in load factor method. Okay, and we have introduced a load factor, that is the ultimate load. Load, a factor of safety, and a load factor then allows to assign different load factor for different loads, resulting in slender section. disadvantages what was there in working stress method is overcome by adopting ultimate load method, so that for each load we can give different load factor and the collapse state is considered. Finally, it will section. We can even reduce the cross section of the structural element by adopting ultimate load method. So here again there were issues were there. So what was that issue? Here, satisfactory strength performance at ultimate load. Satisfactory performance at service loads. That means if you draw, this is your service working load or service load, then we go to the ultimate performance, and we are not considering what is happening here. We are only bothered about this ultimate, at the ultimate state what is happening. So sometimes ultimate load does not get the strength performance at the service load, because service load means that is the where we consider. Okay, that is the what do you mean by service load or working load means what? What's the meaning of service load?
Live load, ma'am.
Do you know what is the service load?
Live load and dead load.
It is not live load and dead load. So that live load that is the load that we are applying it on the structure. Service load means at the service level. That means while working, because it has a life. If we say 50 years, this particular level, the material will from here to here, okay, up to the yield level. Okay, so this is your working load, or it is called the service load. The service strength. After that, the material will go to an inelastic behavior. Okay, from the elastic state, it will move on to the inelastic behavior. So service load, the linear behavior, or within that service of that particular structure, that is called service load. Okay, so every the initial period, okay, the initial life, you know that a structure will have an initial life. So that period, the strength performance has to be not that we are telling, okay, after 100th year or at the last, the final, the collapse, this particular structure will yield to the maximum level, and finally when it reaches the ultimate level, that ultimate load factor method or the load factor method guarantees, but at the same time the service level conditions also have to be satisfied. Okay, so that issue particular issue could not be addressed by a load factor method, because we can see an excessive deflection may come, cracked width may come, the increase issues when we adopt ultimate load method. That means we are giving only the importance to the strength or the is taken into consideration in ultimate load method. Is it clear? Are you able to understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If there is any difficulty in whatever you have already, okay, this is all the initial part of it. You should know the development of the design philosophies from the working stress method to the ultimate, from the limit. Now, to overcome this difficulty in between, but this has not gained much this is that is the probabilistic analysis and design. Analysis and design. Okay, so here, in order to overcome the issues faced by working stress method, you know that working stress method, it was considering only permissible. Ultimate load method, it was considering only load factors. Okay, all this these two methods, they to the or failure is arrested by we have taken some safety margins in probabilistic analysis and design. They have given more importance to some safety margin. So that means the structures are free from a scientific basis underlying the provision of safety margins are questioned. It was a rational design. If we consider the variable, material properties are variable, dimensions are variables. So in order to accommodate all these variables, they have come out with a rational, but there was no scientific basis for that. So without much scientific basis underlying that. So what we have done, so they have decided quantitative representation of safety must be based on some statistical and probabilistic analysis. Okay, so whatever we do, there should be some scientific, that like a working stress method, if I give a factor of safety 3, then everything will become all right. That is not possible. So whenever we do a quantitative representation of safety, because here in have given more important. Okay, so they have started introducing some safety margins. So that safety margins, without any scientific basis, they started using it. So then other methods, that is called reliability models, with the strength design models and serviceability design models. It is completely purely mathematical models they started. Okay, based on some probability. What is the meaning of probability? They will be collecting 50 years data of that particular area, analyzing it. They will do a reliability model analysis. So from that, they will come out with some suggestions or with some empirical relations. With that, we can act for the safety and serviceability. Okay. So for that, some statistical methods were developed. Is the slide moving now? Hello? Hello?
Reliability methods.
Oh, methods. Okay, correct. Reliability methods. Okay. So now, which are all the reliability methods? Okay, there were different number of levels were with some caudal use, with some multiple safety factors. Then the second level of the method is evaluating the risk in terms of reliability, probability of optimization of reliability index. So this is completely a different one. Okay, it is completely a risk in terms of the reliability index optimization. That means all these things can be done with a huge number of data. Okay, you must have studied optimization. What is the meaning of optimization? Suppose if you tell me, how do I explain you optimization? If you do a cube, you want to find out the cube strength, okay, of a particular sample. So what will you do? Usually we take the average, but that is not a correct procedure. Actually, that is not a correct procedure. So what do you need to do? You have to take a number of, because in those of you who has done the experiment to find out some optimum value. Suppose last class Shweta has presented fiber reinforced concrete. Usage of fiber. What is the percentage of fiber we have to put it into the concrete to get an optimum strength? So what is the So what will you do? First, we will see some literature and see, okay, 1%. Then we will put some 1.5%, then 2%. Some values. And if you see in 2%, you are getting a maximum value. And when you use 3%, it is reducing. So what will you say? 2% that result correct. Can you understand my question? Suppose if you want to put a fiber, percentage of fiber, I started doing the experiment. First I started with the 1% of fiber. Then I have done the cube strength. I find out the compressive strength. Then I put, and again I have tested. I got some compressive strength. Then I put 3%. Okay. Then again I found out the, from the result I found out that when I use 2%, I am getting a very high compressive strength. When I am using 3%, the compressive strength is reducing. So what will be your final? You will say that 2% of fiber will give me the optimum value. Is that statement correct? This is what we usually. But is that statement correct? Tell me. Whatever your teacher. Yes. How is it correct? 2% it is giving a high value. 3% it is coming a less value. So I say that 2% is correct. A proper result. Because 3% is decreasing the value. What about my 2.1%? It is also it started reducing at 2.7%. 2% is high. 3 put the values between 2 and 3. There in between 2 and 3 there are many percentage. 2.1, 2.01, 2.2, 2.201, etc. It goes up to 2.9999. So scientifically, whatever that is saying, is it correct? No. But how many trials can you do? How many trials? Because every time between 2 and 3, there are number of many number between 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, in between 2.2 and 2.3, there is and again. So it is very difficult to do finding it out. Okay. So for that, there are like Taguchi method and other thing, reliability based methods are available. Okay, it's completely mathematical. You need to collect some data and you have to put, there are many, so many methods available, reliability based methods are available. So you can put it in that table or put it in that array, whatever values you are getting. Then, okay, between this and this, it is having a change in value, etc. Then you can test it again and find it out. Okay. So what I want to tell you now, it is a reliability based analysis. Okay. It's a completely mathematical analysis where we can get some more accurate result. Okay. So at the level 2 level, you will evaluate the risk. Risk is also another important, okay, in terms of reliability index, failure, optimization, all these things. Okay. Then level 3 was research level, highly mathematical, full scale probabilistic analysis, etc. So with this particular method, it is very difficult for a common to do a design. one man or a contractor or if they cannot do such big analysis and arrive at a design relevant. So this particular probabilistic has moved on to research level. It has gone finally in practical case with this again method called limit state method. It is based on the concept of safety and serviceability. Okay, so all of your IS 456-2000. Okay, please note down this. IS 456-2000 is the code which gives the limit state method. In limit state method, the concept of safety also taken into the concept of serviceability is taken into consideration, because the load factors or partial safety factors are given for 1.5 is the load factor, 1.15 if it is for steel, it is 1.15. So I hope you remember all these things. You please refer 2000. And the students from Ethiopia also can refer this code IS 456. Please note it down. 2000 Indian Standard 456-2000. Now it is again revising it. You will get another new code now. It is under revision. So here and serviceability aspect is taken into consideration. We will see once I take the code and I'll explain you later. Okay, I think most of our Indian students will be knowing because you have done all the design based IS 456-2000, isn't it? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So once again you have to refer that and find out it is taken consideration. What is the serviceability aspect? It is taken into consideration. What is actually meaning by limit state method? Okay, and what is the advantages, disadvantages, and all you start read the introductory part of the IS code. Okay, so I hope so. Now this is the and working stress method to the limit state method. Is this part clear to you? All of
Yes, ma'am.
So just give a small introduction again about this. So what is actually the purpose of a structural system? Okay, a structural system means in building construction, the particular method assembling and structural elements of a building so that they support and transmit the applied loads safely without exceeding the allowable stress in the members. So what is the structural system? Okay. So what is a structural system? It is not the structural elements. Which are the structural elements? The structural elements are nothing but the beams, columns, slabs, walls, etc. So assembling this job for what purpose? To support and transmit the applied loads safely to the ground without exceeding the allowable stress in the members. That is more important. It cannot stress because every material will have an allowable stress. What is the meaning of stress? The resistance given by the material. So whenever there is an external load that is coming on the member will have some stress. Okay, it will have some allowable stress to resist the load. Not exceed the allowable stress. So that is the purpose of the structural system. Then The term structural system or structural frame in structural engineering refers to the existing subsystem of it. Okay. So structure or system means it is the entire structure. Okay, the entire system. Structural system means it is the subsystem of a structure, like a portal frame. If I take a portal frame, that is one structural system, a small part of the structure. If I take that is another structural system. Okay, that is one part of the structure. So what is that structural system do? It transfers the load through, it transfers the interconnected structural components or members. So every purpose of the structural system is to transfer the load. Okay, then a collection or assemblage that when joined together will withstand the loads and forces to which they are subjected. Okay, confined just to the weight, but will also include such forces as wind and earthquake. Okay, so these are all simple things that you know. The load is nothing but the structural to take the load. Okay, support the load, transmit the load safely to the ground. The load means it is not only the dead load or live load, load that is coming on the structure like wind, earthquake, snow, whatever other types of load that is coming on that also has to be transferred to the. Okay, so that is the meaning that you know. I don't have to explain you much about that. Now, when we come to the what are the different types of actually now if you see your now if you look into your syllabus, we slowly moved on to the first module was the design philosophy, and the remaining part you people are taking seminar. Okay, the type of concrete. Last class Shweta has taken 5. I think VRSO will take self-compacting concrete, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
No. So the first unit, the remaining part, I will have it. Okay. Now from now onwards, I'll be slowly moving on to the second module. If you see the syllabus, this comes in the second module. Okay. So don't get confused. So today I'll just discuss what are all the loading on the tall structures. Okay. Whether it is tall structure or the loadings almost remains same, but how it is affecting high-rise structure, that is more important here. Okay. Loading on tall structure differ from low-rise buildings in following aspect. Okay, so this is where the difference between the loading on a low-rise building and a high-rise building. So what it comes here? A large accumulation of gravity loads on floors from top to bottom. Important because if I consider a tall structure, okay. This is one structure and this is another structure. Okay. So this is a low-rise structure and this is a high-rise structure. So what is coming? Okay. For the low-rise or high-rise, the loads, let it be remains same. Okay. Then you have lateral loads also. So let here also be lateral load. So what is the difference between this loading and this loading? For a low-rise structure, let this be 10 meter. Let this height be 100 meter. Okay, 100 meter. So what is happening here? This load that is on the top of the building, it has to be transferred. Okay, so from this slab to the beam to the column to the foundation. Okay, this has to come. But at the same time, if you take 100 from the 100 story to the 99, 98, 97, and finally it has to come to the 0th level. That means an accumulation of gravity load. Okay, from the top floor to the coming lower floor, and the entire load has to be accumulated. It is an cumulative. Okay, it's a cumulative. Here, if I take this is, let this is W1 at this, if it is W2, finally when it comes here, it will be something like this, isn't it? Every floor level it is accumulating. Okay, W1, W3, W1 plus W3. So it is accumulating, and when it comes ground floor, there is a huge accumulation of gravity loads. Okay, so that has to be the difference between a low rise loading on a high rise building, and there is a significant wind loading. So you need not consider the wind load here in a lower percent. It is high rise structure. The wind load, if it is at the top level, at the bottom level, at each and every level, you have to analyze it. A significant wind load, and there is a dynamic loading. Okay, so earthquake loading will be there. The dynamic effect of the loading has to be taken into consideration when you analyze okay. Then the dead load. If you see the dead load, it can be assessed accurately, isn't it? So we know what is the dead load. What is dead load?
Materials doesn't move.
Material
Not movable.
what? Tell me, what do you mean by a dead load?
The weight of the structure
Weight of the structure.
and the immovable materials.
Clearly, weight means
And the immovable materials.
immovable materials. For example, again.
The beam and column are considered as structural members, so they can be the thing.
Beam and column.
And next one.
What is the dead load of the beam? Dead load of a beam, how do you calculate?
With the concrete and the steel, we calculate.
How? No, I didn't hear.
Volume of number.
Volume.
Volume and unit weight.
Unit weight.
The weight of the structural elements and so weight of the structural element means what? How do you what is exactly, a little more clearly can you tell me, Ergibe? Weight of, it's correct. Weight of the structural element is correct. Good. But what is that weight? Weight means what? Or how can I? It is the technical term that we use. The self weight means it is the weight of that material. If I use concrete, if it is a concrete beam, you know I told it is a volume. It is volume, correct. It is a with the volume, how do you calculate? If it is a 200 by 300 beam, how much? 150. Then how do you calculate that? The volume of concrete I can calculate multiplied by the unit weight of concrete. What is the unit weight of concrete? How much is the unit weight of concrete?
24.
Correct. Tell me 20. How much? 25 or 24? Correct only. Tell me. 25. If it is a reinforced concrete, it's 25 kilonewton per meter cube. Okay. If it is a plain concrete, then it is. If it is a masonry, it is 19 kilonewton per meter cube. So this is the weight of the concrete, okay, or the material. So how much volume of concrete is put there? A particular dimension of the beam, that dead load is constant, isn't it? It is. I can very accurately calculate the self weight of the structure. So that is what I want to tell. So the dead load is an accurate measurement. There will not be any variation because you know that what is the dimension of the beams and columns and slabs. You're going to put it there. So the dead load is accurately the dead load can be accurately calculated. Okay. So there is no variation in that. So that's what I wanted to tell you this. Accurately. Live loads means it is anticipated. Live load is the, because if you take a, classroom capacity is 60, but sometimes if I want to take a combined class, the capacity also, maybe if the classroom is bigger, even I may accommodate 150. So it's an anticipated, it is approximately, okay, a combination of experience. Similarly, any commercial building you consider, you may assume that this is the particular strength, or this is the number of visitors that is coming to this particular area, but it can have a variation. So from the previous experience and the observations, the live it can vary. There is a live load mentioned in the codal provision. It is mentioned if it is for different purpose, what is that? But live loads cannot be exactly calculated, but we assume some load. It is completely random. We cannot predict. It is estimated based on some probabilistic approach. Again, like a previous experience and the location. Assume. Okay, it's all completely random. We may expect an earthquake of 4.4 or 5. Sometimes at that same place an 8 earthquake may come. Magnitude may come. Similarly, wind. So it is completely random in nature and it is difficult to predict. So this is the nature of the loading. Okay. So with this class, I think we can stop today. Tomorrow onwards, we will discuss one by one what is lead load, gravity load, wind load, etc. What are the different types of loading has to be taken into consideration when you analyze a tall structure. Okay. We have discussed today. We will discuss the evolution of design from working stress method to limit state method. Then we have discussed what is a structural system, what is the purpose of a and loading on a tall structure. Okay. So this is what we have discussed today. Friday we will be continuing this same topic. We will have then third period. Kavya will give a presentation. Then we will have a discussion on the material. The first unit will continue with that. Okay. So is there any clarification or doubt?